I'm going to show you guys how I would tape a tennis player's shoulder. You see a lot of kind of heavy taping with the zinc oxide, stuff like that, but for tennis players, they need that mobility in their shoulder, so K-tape offers kind of a really good alternative for that. And you hit the exact same structures, just ever so slightly differently. So the first thing we're going to do is give that shoulder nice stability, so we're going to kind of hug it around this area here, so you kind of sit on the bulk of those upper traps and come round to that bottom of the shoulder. You can kind of measure it straight down because you're then going to do a little bit of a stretch around the outside, so measuring it straight down gives you a nice marker, so around about there is perfect. Both of these strips are going to be the exact same length, so you can then use that as a nice guide for cutting your next one. And then again, as always, round off those edges, really important on a shoulder one. Tennis players are going to have t-shirts on and stuff like that, which means that they could get caught. So round those edges off. Turn the tape over and find your 2 anchor points. So rip that bottom section and then rip the top section. So we're getting Alex into that sort of bent position there with the elbow and then ever so slightly raised at the shoulder, so we've got his muscles in that position we want for the taping. So you want to start your first tape just at the bottom bulk, just round about there. So we take that first anchor and you stick it on. You want to make sure you're going at an angle. It just makes it a little bit easier to work with when you're moving through that sort of wrapping around of the shoulder. Take that center part off, and then this is where you want to move around and hug that shoulder, and then we're coming all the way round, and you can kind of sit if you find the clavicle through there, and we're going to sit around there. No stretch on that last anchor, and chuck on a little bit of heat, and then you do the exact same around the front. Sit yourself at ever so slight angle, moving around the front. Center section comes off, and you want to hug around the front of that shoulder. And then those 2 bits at the top, it's a nice kind of marker for you guys to know that you've done it right when they cross over. No stretch on the last section, and rub it through, add a little bit of heat. And then the next thing we want to do is basically support the shoulder, so you're sort of lifting it up and hugging it as well, so you're compressing it ever so slightly to give that support. So we're going to chuck 2 strips over the top of the shoulder. Not too much tape needed for these sections. Again, round off the edges as always. Find your 2 anchor points. And then on these ones, what we're going to do is take that center piece of tape off first. Hold on to your 2 anchors. And then we're going to just sit over the top of that shoulder through there. And then again, sit around the back. Add some heat. Again, take that center section out first. Hold your 2 anchors. If that's 100% stretch, dip it down just a little bit. Chuck that on, and then no stretch on the end. No stretch on this end. And then what you can do is just get your player to move through that range of movement at the shoulder, and you'll find that you get some nice creases as it sits at the top, and as they come across, again, some nice creases at the front and around the back. And make sure that it's all sticking down okay.